getting the chance to dig down in the dirt and take your own fossil home with you. It came in at a low angle, carving out the lake you see beside me. These earthen mounds, known as redans, would be where Confederate forces held their position. The guys and gals who hang 10 off the North Carolina coastline, getting a kiss underneath the mistletoe. It's said to be a sign of love and friendship. Warming up next to an open fire or toasting the perfect marshmallow. 51 bears, including Baron de Graffenried here, line the streets of New Bern. After the original lighthouse fell victim to the Croatan Sound, it was all but forgotten about for several decades. As the dog days of summer transition to the cooler days of fall.
Should have worn my short sleeve shirt today.
Well, the mostly cooler days of fall anyhow. The Hoggard brothers of Windsor spring into action.
Say cheese, please.
We have triplets, Herman, Thurman, and Sherman. Herman, Thurman, and Sherman.
Herman, Thurman, and Sherman.
Or, if you can't quite remember who's who,
Most people call us by the Christmas light man.
why, you might ask?
Hold tight, hold tight. When everything is lit completely up, right over 500,000 lights.
5 electric meters and miles of cords and wires.
That's good.
Power one of the largest Christmas light displays in the East.
Everybody in this area know about the Hoggard's Christmas.
You can see it, I know, from miles away.
It's a lot more than what everybody expects, and they really enjoy it.
Every year, like clockwork, with the flip of a switch, the Hoggard family Christmas light display comes to life. It's a year-round labor of love, one the family does for one specific reason.
It really got started in 1991. My oldest daughter, Carolyn, was involved in an accident. She skipped school one day and never came home. In 2006, I built the Angel, and my other 2 daughters with Jennifer and Nikki, and my wife, we all sit down and built little pieces of Christmas, and that's how we got started.
Christmas was Carolyn's favorite holiday.
We never forget her. It's a big relief for me. It gives me something to do. It keeps your mind off a lot of it, even though it's been quite a few years since my daughter passed away. You know, it's a therapy.
But perhaps the biggest gift of all is being an inspiration to others.
On the worst of days, we've had people come in here and tell us that I was so down today, but just coming in and seeing the glory that y'all give to us with the glow of all the lights, it picks my spirit up.
The brothers are getting older now, and with age comes the uncertainty of what lies ahead.
I'm sure that I could depend on her, that she would probably carry this on, but it's, you know, so it would have been a big job for her. But she loved it and keep us healthy enough to do it.
I'm hoping at least a couple more years before we call it quits, because we know that once we stop, the tradition will stop.
Shortly before she passed, Carolyn wrote a poem which states in part, "Now I know we must lead our lives apart, while keeping fond memories close to the heart. Remember me always with smiles and gladness. Regret not our meeting with tears and sadness. Forget me not." The glow of the lights shines brightly up to the heavens. Carolyn's spirit shines back just as bright. In Windsor, Bertie County, Pierce Legion, not on your side. At the corner of Main Street and Highway 45 in the small community of Swan Quarter, a hand-painted wooden sign takes center stage.
When people pull up to the stop sign, that's the first place their eyes look, is to see what's the news on Pat's sign.
Pat Spencer has run the only gas station in town for several decades. What started out as a political sign on that street corner in front of his business has grown into so much more.
We whitewashed it after that, and we put a birthday sign on there, and then we had everybody that stopped to get gas could take a magic marker and initial it, you know, like we saw it. And the sign just sort of developed from there.
Every morning for the past 20 years, letter by letter, Pat paints the news of the day. Birthdays, celebrations, town events, all the while adding his own flair along the way.
I know a secret I can't tell. Chuck's blowed a gasket and Paula's starting to swell. Sherlyn Carwin has 4 tractors, 2 dogs, 2 grandyoungers, 1 cat, and Fords only, and 1 good woman for 50 years.
You never know what Pat's going to say. It's always going to be funny, or it might be sentimental, and you just never know. He's a comedian in and of himself. He's always saying something funny, so it translates on the sign.
And you never know when your name might show up on it.
I always have a lot of anticipation leading up to my birthday, wondering what Pat's going to say about my birthday.
Swan Quarter has seen its fair share of storms, hurricanes, and floods. Businesses here along Main Street have come and gone, but at least one thing has remained constant here: the sign at Pat's Station.
It's got so many coats of paint on it that it doesn't float. I mean, when we had the storm, it knocked it over and it separated it, but it stayed right there. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't float.
The sign remains anchored to this community, just like Pat himself.
It's kind of a chore, but when the people ride by and speak and like it, you know, that makes it worth it. And that's why I'll keep doing it until I can't do it anymore.
Pat says the sign has fallen in popularity since Facebook became a part of our daily lives. But for the people who still take an extra moment at that stop sign in the middle of town,
it's actually kind of like a place like home. I mean, it represents your home because it's always been here.
maybe they stop and glance to stay informed, or maybe for the indescribable feeling that there's no place like home. In Swan Quarter, I'm Pierce Legion. Out in the wide open farmland, just outside of Williamston, a haunting tale has gripped generations of Martin County residents. Wilford Griffin has lived along Yarrow Creek Road his entire life.
There used to be a mill here, and it was operated by a Mr. Yarrow and his wife. Got to the point that he decided that he would eliminate her, and he tied a millstone around her neck and threw her in the creek here. The story that I have grown up with says that at midnight you'll be able to hear Ms. Yarrow screaming at this bridge.
Yes, you could hear screams. Now, whether it might have been a screech owl at one time, or it could have been the ghost of the late Mrs. Yarrow.
The story behind how this so-called screaming bridge got its name varies a little depending on exactly who you talk to. But no matter what version of the story you believe, they all seem to circle back to the same haunting conclusion.
Halloween night was always the best night. Your mind was ready for it. You could hear something whether it was there or not. We enjoyed being thrilled is what it was, and the mystery of it, and camaraderie, of course.
Camaraderie that sometimes included a few pranks.
One night we were cooking hot dogs, and somebody had gotten there before us and gotten under the bridge with a 12-gauge shotgun and ripped off 3 quick ones. And I'm gonna tell you what, that reverberation and that sound, that cleared us out really quick.
A couple of pranksters hid under the bridge, and when she arrived, they let out a blood-curdling scream, and that lady was convinced that the story of the screaming bridge existed.
But Griffin isn't so sure of it all himself.
I'm not sure that I believe the screaming part. I have never heard the screaming, and I really don't come down at midnight to check it out.
And neither does anyone else these days.
Don't think it is well known with the younger people who are growing up nowadays, because the story hasn't been repeated as much.
This was back during the 60s we're talking about. 40s, 50s, and 60s, yes, it was very widely known.
Take a midnight drive to the East's Screaming Bridge and listen if you dare. In Williamston, Martin County, Pierce Legion, not on your side.